I choose me. I choose me.
Bam, okay, I think we are ready to go. YouTube family, what's going on? Would it be? What's happening? What's popping? And thank you for being here. As a disclaimer, let me just say first to start before we get rolling. This is not advice. This is not therapy. This is in no way, shape, or form coming from a place where I have the answers that you need to know. I'm just sharing my experiences, and hopefully in that there's somebody in some corner of the earth that gets a little piece from it that's helpful. Then I'm grateful and I'm appreciative. But even at the very least, this is an opportunity for me to get better at articulating the things that I've been working on throughout the years in order for me just to even deal with this mind, this brain, this thing that I've been given that I enjoy, and at the same time can cause me pain as well as maybe some of the others around me. And to start, I would say that I am one of the first things that I've probably picked up on in my earlier life is that I'm an overthinker. And for a very long time, people would say, oh, you're overthinking this, or you overthink things. For a long time, I was in denial in that I was very proud to be an overthinker, because overthinking has actually benefited me in many ways. And one of the ways is certain aspects of just working, of being able to get things done, or being able to see things a little bit faster and deal with people and employees, customers, bosses, and things, of just kind of being able to sense and be able to formulate information from different perspectives and make decisions based on that. So it's kind of given me a leg up in certain aspects of work, and I'm sure not all. But at the very same time, in my personal relationships with friends, also maybe the same employees at work and family, it has not always served in my best interest. But more specifically, I wanted to talk about within this last year and a half, I've come across just even, like I've heard it many times, but come across just setting boundaries. And I just remember the week of like, wow, setting boundaries. And I just remember how I felt when I learned, like, no, I'm actually allowed to have boundaries on how I'm going to be treated. And more to talk about that like in another video. But in the last 2 months, what I've really been working on is paying attention to how I feel and how I'm interpreting myself. What are the thoughts and ideas of how I'm perceiving myself? That, because for so long, for years and for decades, I have done a really good job of being a positive thinker. As in, I can take any situation or most situations and find a way to just look at the positive. And as I'm saying this and I'm thinking back of certain things, in some cases, this might have been done in order for me to avoid having to deal with some things. But in my mind, like it was very soothing. Maybe may or may not have been the best approach at the time, but it's what I knew how to do. And it's something that I could also argue was within these characteristics, or this nature of what I've later learned that I was trying to be, which was this good person or this good guy. And I remember even in my last relationship of having these conversations where I just want to be a good guy or a good person. And she would consistently say, "What, you're not a good person? What, do you think you're not a good person?" And I never knew what she was implying there, but now that I'm seeing good person in this as this thing that I was doing, standing behind this virtuous idea of being this person that is better than thou, or this person that despite turmoil and despite circumstances, I'm still going to make honest and good decisions. And I still don't feel that there's anything wrong with that. But at the very core, what I've learned about myself is that I was doing that in order to not, which is wild because I feel like I am confrontational, but at the same time, I was also doing that to not be confrontational. I was doing it to set up these environments where I could pat myself and I could feel good about not doing anything or being passive in a situation and not really stating how I really felt and not being angry or not being emotional in times when maybe I needed to be emotional. And I would justify it by me being this person that is better than the situation. I have a greater cause. Some of that I might have learned growing up in the church when I was a kid. Maybe this virtuous, this good person versus this bad person, which I've later come to understand and don't necessarily believe in this good or bad. You just kind of are, or they are the both sides, or they are the same side of the, no, what am I saying? They are two sides of the same coin or something to that extent. But they're both necessary if you want to even separate them. There is no division of good, bad. They are the same thing because one can't exist without the other. But back to this 2 months of this idea of using this exercise this meditative exercise to come back, and just at any given point in the day, it's normally one of the first couple of thoughts that I have in the morning, and I try to practice it I try to practice this throughout the day, and as well as before I go to bed at nighttime, is just this realignment of understanding how am I perceiving myself, and what is it that I'm implying about who I am. Because back to the good guy, it was a very doable action that I can take on my decisions. But this underlying, how do I really feel about myself, gets more into the subconscious. And just because I'm stepping back and I find that for me, it was beneath this layer of anxiety, this anxiousness, this throughout my entire life, having this feeling of this layer of anxiousness that made me feel like my happiness was somewhere else. My happiness was in some other thing. My happiness was in something I'm about to buy. My happiness is in some relationship that I'm going to build. My happiness was in some job that I'm going to be hired for, or some amount of money that I'm going to make. My happiness was anywhere else other than the actual moment, because it was always something else that I needed to do. And so even as I had successes and small wins, it didn't last long, because there was still this it was kind of like a catapult, like, okay, I'm moving. It was motivation, but it was still that underlying energy of I'm not good enough. And even when I came across this information a while ago, like, I didn't feel like I wasn't not good enough. I didn't feel, in fact, that's how I was internalizing it, was I'm better than this situation, so why am I in it? And then I'm upset or depressed or less than or anxious. Or I'm better than these people, so why am I am worth more than this, so why am I deserve, or I should be at this point, so why am I? And it was just, it just didn't stop. And that was the surface, but that underlying feeling of once you strip that away, and I learned to, okay, so here's the anxiousness. Can I set that aside for a second? And I say set it aside, I didn't move it. I more so acknowledged it and said, oh, I'm feeling anxious for whatever reason. And I would just sit in it and not fight it. I know that they say welcome it. I don't know that I welcomed it, but I gave it permission to kind of be there, and just thought about why it was there and where it was coming from. And in that, it starts to dissipate. And in that skill, I started to learn how to, back to what I was saying before, was maybe kind of, as it comes up, very quickly I can kind of move it to the side. And not that it's not allowed to exist, but just try to feel what is underneath that. What was underneath that, and what is it that I'm believing about myself at the moment? And that subconscious work is still difficult. And one of the reasons why I even want to share this is, because I always feel like I don't necessarily make sense, but in watching other people share their information, I have learned tremendously from some people that we probably all know, as well as just some random people in their bedroom sharing their own experiences. And I know that that serves a greater purpose. And I feel like I should be a part of that. It's the least that I can do. And once I moved that aside, and I sat in this understanding, or when I sit in this understanding of what am I thinking about myself, and start practicing feeling a little bit better about myself, or asking myself questions, and getting to a point of walking myself maybe out of the hole in those situations, I find that process is still very difficult, because the mind will do a lot of very sneaky things to bring itself back to what we'll call normalcy, or back to that state of where we've been for so long. Because once you start making decisions that step outside of where I've been, or where you've been for so long, it gets lonely, it gets scary. It's a little, you might even feel some onsets of depression. And while I know I'm not any of those things, I would just share that it's not always easy. And that's okay, because that's the whole point of doing any exercise, mentally or mental, physical, emotional, is just, it's part of it is just doing the work and just showing up. And I'll do things where I'll feel in my head, well, how come I didn't do this today? Or I didn't do that, or I didn't get this done, or...
You know what I'm saying? And then we had to go to a point and be like, okay, tear this down. And let's start from the beginning. And it's hard. Remember, we just talked about me, I'm from Marcy Projects, and shot at, all kind of, nothing's harder than this. By far, I'm telling you, it's the hardest thing I've ever done. And most people, most humans, us, you know what I mean? We're not willing to put ourselves through that. Most people give up.
And a lot of it just still ties back to my mind working on different ways to bring me back to the state that I was at before. And once you start to see that pattern, even that within itself is, dare I say, awakening. But it's very, very helpful. And so if there's anybody else out there that's in this position where you're at a place where you're just being aware of how you're feeling and working on just feeling better, or just being present in that moment, and just practicing being present. Of, I could be folding clothes or doing the dishes or cooking, or I went for a walk today, and just throughout any and all of that, I just continuously practice on just being aware that this is what I'm doing right now. Don't get lost. Don't get lost in music. Don't get lost in some talk. Because that's another thing too, is that there's been all of these things that I've attributed to things that I love to do. Music, where I can listen to music all the time, or I always have music playing, or I'm always looking for some new music. So whether it's music or cooking, which for me leads to snacking, or just going on the internet and finding solutions, or finding out how to do something, or learning about something. I mean, the list goes on. And all these things that are quote unquote on the surface level good for me, or they're fine, there's nothing wrong with them. I've also just come to notice that how much I've used those as ways of distracting from myself. And right off the top, I can think of music being one of those things where I'm like, all right, I'm gonna iron some clothes, but then I have to go find a video to listen to or to watch while I'm doing that, or find some music that I can get into, listen to or watch, or something, you know, this background of distraction, so I don't have to hear myself think. Again, there's nothing wrong with music, right? But used as a form of distraction, it stopped me from listening to myself. And again, this work on a day-to-day basis is not easy, which is another reason why I just want to get on here and just share my experience share my experiences, is because for the other 23 hours out of the day, I want to just kind of get on with my life and allow myself and give myself permission to not really think. And there's other things that are kind of in the same category of just being in the present moment and being aware of how I'm thinking about myself. And included in there are boundaries, of just putting up boundaries on how I'm going to treat myself, loving myself, which I've heard a zillion times, and I just for the life of me could not figure out what that meant when people would say, oh, you just have to love yourself and put yourself first. And I'm still even working on that. Also incorporated into this bubble would be the idea of just even putting myself first, and also this discovery of who am I when I'm not this anxious person, because that anxiety will give you a bunch of things to do. And if you're an overthinker, that anxiety probably has you on 5-6 different projects that are all make little progress, and you have some wins and individual things, but overall they all have this approach of you trying to, when it gets to the end or when it gets to be something, then you're going to be something. And so who am I without this layer of anxiety? And what is it that I'm actually really interested in doing? What would I gravitate to if I wasn't trying to be something else? And I think that's the easiest way to put it. And maybe I'll talk about more specifically some of these things in another video, but I just wanted to, at least at the very least, put this out there to start. And if anybody else is going through this, or is dealing with this, or is an overthinker, or has their own approaches or different approaches, or I'm just really curious about your thoughts. So just please reach out to me, or if you feel comfortable, put them in the comments. But it's, yeah, I just want to say, again, 2 months of just being aware of how I'm feeling about myself is not always easy. But I'm at the same time extremely grateful that I've come across just even that information to even have that idea of something that I could be doing. And also something else in that bubble is this idea that I'm not good enough, or I'm not complete right now, which might be just another way of saying all the other things as well. But that's just something that just kind of came up, is this idea of just, there's something that needs to be fixed. Because I have also found that as a way of a distraction, as well as, oh, I don't have anything to do, let me start scrolling and find something that somebody's going to give me a solution on how to fix my life, or maybe how you ended up getting here, who knows. But again, part of that reprogramming or that rewiring is the idea, and just knowing that I am already good enough. I am whole. I am, I don't need to be anything other than who I am. And not only that, but just enjoy this moment without that anxious layer of whatever that is. So, thank you for being here. I just want to share, and I hope no matter where you're at and whenever you're getting this and wherever you're receiving it, that you're having a beautiful day, before, during, and beyond. So thank you for being here, and love y'all. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.